In a manner that very few others have been able to accomplish, Rick Harrison, who is a contestant on the History Channel show Pawn Stars, has been able to win the hearts of people all around the world. In light of this, you can imagine how shocking it was when reports began to circulate that Rick would be sentenced to life in prison. As a result of the fact that Rick has been confronted with a number of significant personal and legal obstacles during the course of his life, this rumor has received a greater amount of attention. Taking a look at what happened to Rick Harrison and getting an update on his present condition is next on our agenda. In the year 1965, on March 22nd, Rick Harrison was born to his parents Richard Benjamin Harrison and Joanne Rue Harrison. His mother and father were blessed with 4 children, Sherry, Joseph, Rick, and Chris. Rick was the 3rd child in the family. When Rick was very young, he suffered the loss of his sister, Sherry Joanne Harrison. This was exactly the beginning of his experience with horrific catastrophes. Her mother, Sherry Harrison, was born with Down syndrome, and she was the first child of the Harrison family. Unfortuitously, she passed away when she was just 6 years old. To make matters worse, Rick himself suffered from epileptic seizures on a consistent basis when he was 8 years old. As a result, he was forced to spend a significant amount of time in bed reading books because he had no other option. It was because of this that he developed a lifetime passion for reading and books, particularly those that address topics related to history and physics. The Great Brain, a series written by John D. Fitzgerald, is one of his most cherished works. It was based on a con artist named Tom D. Fitzgerald, who was only 10 years old and lived in Utah. This con artist served as an inspiration to the young Rick. Rick attended Taft Middle School in San Diego when he was a teenager, but he left school in the 10th grade in order to sell fake Gucci bags for a weekly income of $2,000 during that time. All of that, however, altered when the real estate business that his parents owned failed. Consequently, in April of 1981, the family was required to relocate to Las Vegas, Nevada. Rick, who was now a teenager, was confronted with even another obstacle when his girlfriend. There was a pregnancy in Kim. Although he was still relatively young, Rick made the courageous decision to become a father. The young couple suffered yet another tragic loss when they experienced a miscarriage, which resulted in the loss of their first child. Despite this, they maintained their commitment to one another and eventually tied the knot a year later. After then, they gave birth to their first child, Corey, who went on to achieve a great deal of success and play a significant role in making the family business profitable. 2 years later, they were overjoyed to welcome their second child, Adam, into the world. At this location, yet another tragic event took place. The breakup of Rick and Kim occurred not long after Adam was born. However, Rick did not remain a single parent for an extended period of time. 9 months following the conclusion of his divorce, he began a relationship with Tracy. They dated for approximately 8 months before being married a year after his divorce. Additionally, the pair took on the burden of caring for Corey and Adam because they had a new partner at the time of their wedding. In order to provide for his growing family, Rick required a more reliable source of income. Therefore, when his father built a second-hand gold and silver coin shop in Las Vegas Boulevard South that was 300 square feet in size, Rick, who was repossessing vehicles at night, was forced to join his father in the new business. Although we have indicated that Rick had a passion for history and physics, he was completely unaware that the information he learned from those topics would prove to be beneficial in the new business venture that his family was about to embark on. The fact that Rick was ready to provide historical context for each item helped to the success of the shop, which was a direct result of his skill in history. A further 5 years later, the family moved to a more prominent location on Fremont Street. Nevertheless, they were forced to transfer once more after only 2 years due to the fact that they had lost their lease. As time went on, he and his father came to the conclusion that it would be the next natural step to transform the store into a pawn shop. On the other hand, one of the challenges they encountered was that they were unable to establish themselves as a fully fledged pawn shop due to a law in Las Vegas that only issued a limited number of pawn licenses based on the population of the city. They had the intention of submitting an application for a pawn license as soon as the population of the city reached the required threshold, and after overcoming a few legal obstacles, they were finally able to obtain their pawn license. It was in the same year that the father and son opened the pawn shop that specialized in gold and silver at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard South, which was located not too far from the Las Vegas Strip. However, jewelry quickly became their most popular item. Despite the fact that the father and son initially concentrated on selling unique historical pieces and special sports items in their shop, over the course of time their company expanded and became well known in the Las Vegas area. Rick was now a co-founder of the show and shop, and he had spent the majority of his life working hard to grow and expand the pawn shop business. He had been there for the majority of his life. By the year 2005, they were lending out millions of dollars annually and generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest income. Over the course of the following year, the shop gained a reputation for stocking extraordinary sports memorabilia with intriguing histories. They also assisted gamblers who would pawn items in order to obtain money for gas in order to travel back to their homes. Pawn stars came into being as a result of their expansion and popularity, which attracted the attention of history. However, jewelry became the most popular commodity that they sold from that point on. Over the course of time, their company expanded and became well known in the Las Vegas area. Rick was now a co-founder of the show and shop, and he had spent the majority of his life working hard to grow and expand the pawn shop business. He had been there for the majority of his life. By the year 2005, they were lending out millions of dollars annually and generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest income. Over the course of the following year, the shop gained a reputation for stocking extraordinary sports memorabilia with intriguing histories. They also assisted gamblers who would pawn items in order to obtain money for gas in order to travel back to their homes. Their rise in popularity drew the attention of the History Channel, which led to the emergence of Pawn Stars. Brent Montgomery and Colby Gaines from Left Field Pictures proposed the idea for Pawn Stars. During a visit to Las Vegas in 2008, they appreciated the range of interesting and shady pawn shops. Believing that these shops may be home to distinctive people, they looked for a family-owned shop on which to base a TV series. Eventually, they spotted the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, which was less than 2 miles from the Las Vegas Strip. This shop had already been the center of a PBS documentary in 2001, and Rick had sought a show about his shop for years. He has previously appeared in an episode of Insomniac with Dave Attell in 2003. The show was first offered to HBO, who didn't like the original premise, but they allowed it to be transformed into the family-friendly style we now enjoy. Originally named Pawning History, it was eventually altered to Pawn Stars to better reflect what they were shooting. Pawn Stars is a fun pun on the name of the product. Filming for the episode started at the well-known pawn shop in Las Vegas, Nevada, which specializes in gold and silver. In spite of the fact that jewelry is the most often pawned item, clients on Pawn Stars bring in a wide variety of vintage or antique things. The store is frequently closed to the general public during filming, and only a select few customers who have been pre-approved are permitted to enter. The show was largely responsible for the rise in popularity of the Harrison family. There were a lot of people who watched it, and they left positive reviews and wanted more, which helped the show grow and return on an annual basis. By the year 2011, Pawn Stars had risen to the position of being the most popular show on the History Channel and the reality show that had the second highest rating behind only Jersey Shore. In the same year, Rick published his biography, which was licensed upon Deals, Steals, and My Life at the Gold and Silver. The book reached number 22 on the New York Times bestseller list. During the same year, Rick married Tracy for the second time and divorced her. The following year, he made the announcement that he was going to marry Deanna Burdett, who had also been divorced twice, and he had been divorced twice before. Rick was pleased with the success of the show as well as his growing popularity among television viewers. An episode of iCarly titled I Lost My Head in Vegas featured him, Corey, and Chumley all playing themselves in the role of themselves. Following that, Rick appeared in an episode of another series called The Middle, in which he played the role of an antique store proprietor. Additionally, he tied the knot with Deanna Burdett in Laguna Beach, California around this time. Through his marriage to this woman, Rick was able to acquire 3 stepdaughters, Marissa, Sienna, and Serena. The first episode of the game show Pornography aired on the History Channel in July of 2014. The show featured Rick, Corey, and Chumley battling against other participants in an effort to prevent them from winning cash and things from the inventory of the Gold and Silver Pawn Store. Rick and his family would unfortunately be subjected to a string of awful misfortunes, the first of which was the tragic death of the family patriarch. In June of 2018, Rick was bereaved of his father. When Rick shared the news of his father's passing with his more than 250,000 Instagram followers, he said that Parkinson's disease was the cause of death. It was confirmed by a representative of the Harrison family that the patriarch had passed away. Rick posted a close-up photograph of his father, who was 77 years old at the time, wearing a black suit, spectacles that matched, and a fedora. He also created a touching homage to the individual who had assisted him in managing the family business. On this morning, Richard Benjamin Harrison, well known as the Old Man, passed away as he was surrounded by his loved ones. He will be sorely missed by our family, the crew at Gold and Silver Pawn, and his many followers across the world. The History Channel also made a sincere message expressing its sorrow for the old man passing. We are extremely devastated by the demise of our family. We will miss his insight and honesty. Our prayers are with the Harrison family during this terrible time. Rick also talked out on the personal impact his father had on him. He was my hero, and I was happy to have such a great elderly man as my dad. I'm thankful that I got to share him with so many others who could see what a wonderful family man he was. He continued, he led a full life, and via Pawn Stars he impacted people everywhere, emphasizing the virtues of family, hard work, and humor. We appreciate everyone's thoughts and prayers and ask for privacy during this time. Even added a second photo of his father as a young man in a military uniform, adding, "Today I lost a friend, a parent, a teacher, and so much more." The old man lost his lengthy struggle with Parkinson's this morning. Love you, Dad. See you on the other side. Rick was left fully responsible for the upkeep of the family as well as the operation of the shop after the death of his father, which caused him to experience an overwhelming sense of loss. In addition, Rick was forced to deal with the additional burden of a divorce from his third wife, whom he had married in September of his third year of marriage. According to court documents that were obtained by TMZ, Rick Harrison and Deanna Burdett appeared to have become so emotionally distant from one another that they were unable to continue their marriage. According to what Rick stated in the lawsuit, their preferences, opinions, and tastes have become so dissimilar that they are unable to get along with one another in their marriage. As an additional point of interest, TMZ mentioned that the divorce may have been overlooked due to the fact that it occurred during the national protests against George Floyd. In an interview with TMZ, Rick stated, "I got 3 great daughters out of it." He was referring to Deanna's 3 children from her previous marriage. He also stated that the marriage did not work out and that the divorce was a mutual decision. Moreover, he stated that he has moved on. It is evident that he continues to consider his stepchildren to be his personal children, as seen by the father-daughter images that he has lately put on Instagram. In a post that he made on Instagram on August 7th, Rick talked about father-daughter day off-roading. At the very least, the fact that he has voiced similar views about more than one of his stepdaughters offers some cause for optimism. In spite of the difficulties, Rick was able to handle everything with the assistance of his son Corey and his closest buddy Austin Chumley Russell. 1 year later, Rick tied the knot with Amanda Palmer, his 4th wife, in the hopes of having a more fulfilling life with her. However, Rick's problems did not end there despite his best efforts. After a period of 2 years, he was confronted with legal troubles involving his own mother, Joanne Rue. It has been reported by USA Today that Rick Harrison's mother, Joanne Harrison, has initiated legal action against her son about the ownership of the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop and the assets that belong to the family. The lawsuit was submitted to the Nevada State Court for civil action. Among the individuals identified as defendants in the complaint are Rick Harrison, the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, Harrison Properties, Jorick Properties, and multiple other individuals. The management of a family business can be difficult and challenging due to the fact that financial concerns can lead to the breakdown of positive connections. Unfortunately, this was the situation that the mother and son found themselves in. Disputes around money had a significant impact on the relationship between Rick and Joanne. The case from his mother accused Rick of breaking a contract, pointing out that his mother was married to his father for almost 6 decades. Yet when she was in the hospital in the early 2000s, right after she woke up from a coma, Rick had her sign over her 51% ownership of the pawn store to him. At a period when she didn't completely understand what she was signing, this of course didn't portray Rick in a favorable light, as people who were following the tale had always regarded him to be a family-oriented person who wouldn't screw his family because of money. The fact was that when Rick's father went away, his wife received his 49% stake of the pawn store. However, her son never gave her the full financial records of the business. She said she hadn't gotten adequate paperwork for more than $500,000 in cash and silver, which she believed her husband possessed when he died. She said Rick had ceased giving her money from her late husband's part of the business. Rick used to send her regular $25,000 installments, but he stopped in 2020. Additionally, Joanne was attempting to pursue legal action in order to have that amount reinstated. According to rumors, Joanne obtained a temporary restraining order against her son in order to prevent him from selling any of the family's assets. As a result, many fans thought that Rick's money was in jeopardy. In addition, the restraining order would restrict Rick from relocating or concealing cash assets, as well as from doing any other acts that would limit her stake in the family firm. In addition, the lawsuit demanded that Rick be ordered to stop using his mother's money, that he be given a detailed account of his holdings, and that he be awarded damages that were not defined. Also, he was required to create a constructive trust in order to relinquish any control he had over her possessions. On the other hand, Rick later stated in an interview about the case that the allegations are false, and I feel that my mother, who is 81 years old, is being persuaded by other people for their own benefit.